The government won a vote on its controversial watered-down welfare bill on Tuesday night, but it faced its biggest backbench rebellion so far. The Universal Credit and Personal Independent bill passed by 335 votes to 260. A total of 49 Labour MPs rebelled against their own government. We have all you need to know. Also, on news at 10 tonight. A fire at West London substation that caused the shutdown of Heathrow Airport was caused by a preventable technical fault that had been discovered 7 years before, but had not been fixed, the reporters found. Energy watchdog Ofgem has launched an investigation after a report by the National Energy System operator NESO said an elevated moisture reading had been found in oil samples at the North Hyde substation in July 2018, but action was not taken to replace the electrical insulators known as bushings. China is braced for more heavy rainfall in the coming days after floodwaters tore through multiple provinces, leaving several people dead and submerging roads. 5 people died and another 3 were missing in the Henan province, according to the Emergency Command Centre in Exide County. More than 800 locals took part in the rescue operation. And the number of migrants who have crossed the English Channel so far this year is the highest on record. The latest Home Office figures show nearly 20,000 people have made the perilous journey in their first half of this year, which is 48% higher than the same time last year and 75% higher than this time in 2023.
This is STV News at 10 with Stephen Woolridge.
Good evening. The government won a vote on its controversial watered-down welfare bill on Tuesday night, but it faced its biggest backbench rebellion so far. The Universal Credit and Personal Independent Payment bill passed by 335 votes to 260. A total of 49 Labour MPs rebelled against their own government. Speaking after the vote, Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall insisted the Labour Party is 100% behind Starmer despite the rebellion, but acknowledged there were lessons to learn. As our STV News political correspondents Robin Weeks and Harry Horton report, with analysts from our STV News political editor Robert Peston.
The ayes to the right, 335. The noes to the left, 260. So the ayes have it, unlock.
That was the moment the Prime Minister avoided defeat on his flagship welfare reform, but it came at a price, having to abandon the attempt to tighten the criteria for PIP, for now, in a dramatic 11th hour concession.
We will move straight to the wider review and only make changes to PIP eligibility activities and descriptors following that review.
The climb down on top of last week's climb downs mean all of the government's supposed £5 billion savings will be wiped out, but a day which started with some backbenchers protesting against their own government's plans had only risen in emotion through the afternoon.
It is with a heavy, broken heart that I will be voting against this bill today. As a matter of conscience, I need my constituents to know I cannot support the proposed changes to PIP.
These Dickensian cuts belong to a different era and a different party. They are far from what this Labour Party is for.
This is crazy, man. This is outrageous, man. This bill isn't fit for purpose.
A volley of criticism so sustained the Tory leader's line of attack was almost light relief.
And I feel sorry for the Right Honourable Lady. She looks as if she's being tortured. This is a rushed attempt to plug, we all know why this is happening. This is a rushed attempt to plug the Chancellor's fiscal hole.
Despite the concession on PIP, which hollows out the government's plans, 49 Labour MPs still rebelled. The mood after the vote stunned.
What people have watched today is game playing to save the government's face. This isn't about disabled people. This was about the government having a win. I am utterly ashamed of my party today.
What damage do you think this has done to the party?
It's not. It hasn't been ideal at all. But I think it's absolutely clear that they are in the listening mode, and I think from that point of view, we are a Labour team.
A team that looks riven in two this evening. The Work and Pensions Secretary desperately trying to scrape something positive from a day of utter chaos.
We need to begin to get the benefits bill on a more sustainable footing so it lasts for generations to come. That's what the Labour Party stands for. It's been a bumpy time tonight, but we've passed second reading and we're going to go forward together.
But postponing PIP reforms leaves a gaping hole in the Chancellor's budget and inescapable questions about why the Prime Minister failed to see any of this coming. Romilly Weeks, News at 10.
Well, the harshest parts of the welfare reforms may have been shelved, but many of those who receive the Personal Independence Payment, or PIP, are still concerned about what lies ahead. Originally, as part of proposals made in March, the government planned to tighten the eligibility rules for all those claiming PIP. But faced with a rebellion last week, they announced that current claimants would continue to receive the payment, and there would be a review into how the changes would affect those yet to begin claiming. Well, today, the government announced those changes would now not take place until after November 2026, once that review is completed. But given the political furore today, and indeed over the past week, it is hard, honestly, to see the circumstances in which the government might try and revive them.
Outside Westminster tonight, disability campaigners were trying to follow the debate inside. And despite late concessions, their faith in government has been deeply damaged.
It's been so confusing, it's been so overwhelming.
It's got whiplash, honestly, it's just been change after change after change.
This process has been handled appallingly. They were trying to slip it through with lots of the impacts under the radar.
Rob receives personal independence payments because of mental health and mobility issues. Although his support is protected for now, he says assessments are already skewed against those like him.
It was humiliating, degrading. You end up feeling like you don't deserve a life like other people. That you are destined to be poor for the rest of your life. And the system is set up to make you feel like you are a fraud, that you are trying to rip people off.
Ray doesn't yet receive PIP, but as her multiple sclerosis worsens, she's preparing for an assessment.
You see, it's things like this, so can prepare and cook a simple meal unaided.
She's worried new rules could still make it harder to get the help she needs.
It's going to create a two-tiered system where somebody with the same condition at the same sort of progression, say, will be eligible or might be able to claim more or less.
The government says it will coordinate welfare reforms with disability charities, but many are sceptical.
Have you got any faith that this government can go about reforming the welfare system?
They don't start with the fact that this society has an increasing number of disabled people. Why is that, I wonder? Is it because of poverty? Is it because of demographics? Well, why has the government started this debate around benefits, which is a symptom, it's not the underlying issue?
Welfare reforms are being rethought tonight, and campaigners will now wonder whether the government is ready to listen. Harry Horton, News at 10.
So the next obvious question is, where does this leave us? And Joel and Robert are here. Joel, let's begin with you. It leaves Rachel Reeves with a big black hole, does it not?
It does. This is politically embarrassing, but there are financial problems now of the government's own making. Remember, this original plan was rushed out around the time of the spring statement, precisely because the Chancellor was in danger of breaking the fiscal rules that she'd only just set herself at the first time of asking. The original plan to save £4.5 billion there by tightening the PIP eligibility, a further £2.7 billion by cutting future spending on incapacity benefit, the health element of universal credit, but to increase, as you can see at the bottom there, the generosity of universal credit for those out of work who do not have health problems. Total savings, £5.5 billion by 29/30. The PIP changes were tweaked. Now they've been shelved. The changes to incapacity benefit have been watered down. The uplift to the standard allowance still goes ahead as planned. So the total savings now zero. Well, in fact, actually, it costs the government something slightly. Let's be clear. Tom, there has been a huge increase in the number of people claiming disability and incapacity benefits in the last 5 years. Any government would be concerned about the surge in claims. The way they've gone about tackling this, though, is a complete fiasco. Back in March, the Office of Budget Responsibility gave the Chancellor £10 billion of wiggle room against her fiscal rules. Tonight, £5.5 billion of that has gone. We've seen another U-turn that needs funding, which is the winter fuel payment. That's going to eat up another billion. The economic outlook is bleak. Borrowing is overshooting. Borrowing costs remain high. The news does not look good for the Chancellor. And in the autumn, there's every chance she'll have to raise taxes as things stand. So more political humiliation lies ahead, potentially.
It's not a very rosy picture, is it, Robert? We often talk about, don't we, that government isn't easy, and we know it's not easy. But like this government's only been in a year, it's made a number of really colossal U-turns on signature policies, which everyone else seemed to see coming long before they did. I mean, this is a really bad mess of their own making, is it not?
Yeah, this is self-harm on a colossal scale. Much of it stems from something that Joel's just been talking about, which is this sort of astonishing determination to follow the fiscal rules, not to breach them, to have this institution called the Office of Budget Responsibility as the arbiter of whether the public finances are moving in the right direction, but an arbiter not just as a sort of guide, but as almost a body with religious authority. And so a reform that the Work and Pensions Department had been planning to do, but had been planning to do over a period of many months, was massively accelerated because Rachel Reeves, beginning of the year, said, I want money. Initially, she actually said £10 billion. Actually, the Prime Minister intervened and stopped one particularly painful element of all of that, which was to freeze the personal independence allowance. And we got back down to that still significant, but rather more modest £5 billion saving that Joel was talking about. Labour MPs, however, for them, one MP put it to me like this, that this for them is like hostilities the European Union was to the Tories when they were in government. Cutting welfare is not something that any Labour MP wants to do. And weeks ago, not particularly left-wing Labour MPs were telling the whips they were going to struggle to vote for this. The whips told Downing Street. Downing Street simply refused to take this seriously. They sent, Keir Starmer's own advisors went to see these MPs, broadly shouted at them, told them, essentially to do what they were being, what Downing Street felt they were being paid to do, which was to follow orders. And MPs thought, actually, we understand the parliamentary system. We're representatives. We are not your delegates. We will do what is right for our consciences. And so we had actually, just to be clear, literally as late as Wednesday, the government was saying to anybody who was thinking of rebelling, if you rebel, you will never, ever, ever get a job on the payroll in government. Today, you had the spectacle of Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, and the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, ringing up MPs, almost desperately saying, what can we do to get you to vote for this? In the end, they caved on everything. They've lost every penny of saving. As you pointed out, it almost certainly means that any reform of welfare is off the table. And they have therefore achieved precisely the opposite of what they set out to achieve back in January, February. Their fiscal credibility is shattered. as opposed to being reinforced.
But apart from all that, it's been a terrific
all been
success.
fine.
Yeah. Okay.
A fire at West London substation that caused the shutdown of Heathrow Airport was caused by a preventable technical fault that had been discovered 7 years before but had not been fixed, a report has found. Energy watchdog Ofgem has launched an investigation after a report by National Energy System Operator NESO said an elevated moisture reading had been found in oil samples at the North Hyde substation in July 2018, but the action was not taken to replace electrical insulators known as bushings. In 2022, a decision was made to defer basic maintenance at the substation, meaning the issue went unaddressed, the final report said. On Wednesday, Ofgem said it had opened an official enforcement investigation into National Grid electricity transmission based on the NESO review's findings. The fire on March 20th this year was caused by a catastrophic failure in one of the transformers, most likely caused by moisture entering the bushing, causing a short circuit, which ignited the oil, the NESO report said. A review by the National Grid in 2022 found the fire suppression system at the North Hyde site was inoperable, while another assessment in July 2024 indicated the system was still out of service, the report said. All flights in and out of Heathrow were halted on March 20th after a fire knocked out the electricity substation in Hayes and did not resume until the evening on March 21st. More than 270,000 air passenger journeys were disrupted by the closure. The electricity outage led to 71,655 domestic and commercial customers losing power and the complete loss of supplies of part of Heathrow's airport's internal electrical distribution network, the report said. Ash Kay, called the Director General for Infrastructure at Ofgem, said, "We expect energy companies to properly maintain their equipment and networks to prevent events like this happening. Where there is evidence that they have not, we will take action and hold companies to fully account." The NESO report, which was published on Wednesday and commissioned by Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, read, "An elevated moisture reading in one of the SGT3's bushings had been detected in oil samples taken in July 2018. According to the National Grid electricity transmission's relevant guidance, such as readings indicate an imminent fault that the bushing should be replaced. While the reading was recorded in National Grid electricity transmission's online system, the mitigations appropriate to its severity were not actioned. The controls in place were not effective and failed to identify subsequently that action had not been taken in relation to the elevated moisture reading. This includes on an opportunity in 2022 when a decision was taken to defer basic maintenance on SGT3. The issue therefore went unaddressed. The NESO review also found the design and configuration of Heathrow's internal power network meant the loss of just one of its 3 supply points would result in the loss of power to operationally critical systems, leading to suspension of operations for a significant period. Heathrow is Europe's largest airport, with more than 83.9 million passengers travelling through its terminals in 2024. A National Grid spokesperson said, as NESO's report sets out, in Great Britain we have one of the most reliable networks in the world, and events of this nature are rare. National Grid has comprehensive asset inspection and maintenance programmes in place, and we have taken further action since the fire. This includes an end-to-end review of our oil sampling processes and results, further enhancement of fire risk assessment at all operational sites, and retesting the resilience of substations that severe strategic infrastructure. We fully support the recommendations in the report and are committed to working with NESO and others to implement them. We also cooperate closely with Ofgem's investigations. There are important lessons to be learned about cross-sector resilience and the need for increased coordination. And we look forward to working with the government, regulators and industry partners to take these recommendations forward. China is braced for more heavy rainfall in the coming days after floodwaters tore through multiple provinces, leaving several people dead and submerging roads. 5 people died and another 3 were missing in the Henan province, according to the Emergency Command Centre in Exai County. More than 800 locals took part in the rescue operation. Heavy rainfall is forecast to batter northern China, including cities like Beijing and Taiwan this week. Beijing has issued a blue warning for heavy rain and a meteorological risk warning for geological disasters. The city's level 4 flood emergency response will be launched at 9 AM on Wednesday and several trains have been suspended. A record-breaking 354mm rainfall fell in 12 hours in Exinfeng County in Hubei province. Around 12,000 residents were evacuated. Schools were closed and all public transport has been halted. 6 people were confirmed dead after a flooding hit Rongjiang County in Guizhou province. The county has been battered by torrential rain and rising rivers since Tuesday, with peak flows reaching over 11,000 cubic metres a second. Floodwaters submerged much of the low-lying urban area, causing widespread damage to infrastructure. Power, water and communication services were disrupted, and many roads were rendered impassable. And finally, the number of migrants who have crossed the English Channel so far this year is the highest on record. The latest Home Office figures show nearly 20,000 people have made the perilous journey in the first half of this year, which is 48% higher than the same time last year, and 75% higher than this time in 2023. The number of people crossing the English Channel has increased by 48% to the same time last year, as our STV News correspondent Neil Connery reports.
Another Border Force vessel heads into Dover. On board, wearing life jackets, migrants who've been picked up. The latest of the record 20,000 to have arrived on small boat crossings so far this year. We watched as they came ashore. 3 small children among the group of mainly men. What fear have these young lives endured on this perilous journey? In the space of a few hours, the Border Force returned 5 times with migrants from the Channel. Just under 20,000 people arrived in the UK by the end of June, Home Office figures show. That's 48% higher than the first 6 months of 2024, which was 13,489, and 75% higher than the equivalent figure for 2023, which was 11,433. The highest number on one day so far this year is 1,195 on May the 31st.
The way to stop deaths in the Channel is to completely stop the crossings, and the way to do that is to have a removals deterrent, so every single person arriving in the UK is immediately removed to a location outside of Europe. Then very quickly the crossings will stop entirely.
ITV News recently filmed migrants setting off from the French coast. The desperation despite the risks clear to see.
We can adopt an approach which is about seeing it as just criminal activity, and we can prosecute, we can adopt different police tactics, but ultimately that's not going to address why people are getting into the boats, and it's not going to stop desperate people coming from countries like Sudan where there's an horrendous civil war.
With the French President Emmanuel Macron in the UK for a state visit next week, it's possible a deal may be agreed to toughen up measures along with a returns agreement. For a government which promised to smash the gangs, these latest record figures make for difficult reading. The scale and complexity of the challenge, if anyone needed reminding, made clear. Neil Connery, News at 10, Dover.
And there you go, that is tonight's News at 10. Coming next, the national weather and the news from your part of the UK, but from all of us here. Good night. Thank you very much indeed for watching.